In this tutorial, we will be demonstrating how easy it is to manage desktop shortcuts within your virtual desktop environment using the VDI ToolKit. We will also look at some of the alternatives and their associated pitfalls, and lastly, we will demonstrate how the VDI ToolKit overcomes those pitfalls. So one alternative when managing desktop shortcuts is using group policy. So group policy unfortunately has some inherent problems when being utilized within a virtual desktop environment. So group policy does not use a robust rules engine that is aware of all aspects of your virtual desktop environment. This means it is not client aware, and group policy rules cannot be based off of the client or any other virtual desktop session variable. This can be bothersome if you have employees that could be working from a number of different clients or locations. In some of those scenarios, you may only want the user to have a particular desktop shortcut when working from a certain client or location. Let's talk about how the VDI ToolKit tries to differentiate itself when dealing with desktop shortcuts. It uses a robust rules engine that fully understands the concept of a client and many other variables within your virtual desktop environment, such as user, virtual desktop hostname, and client, just to name a few. So up next, we will demonstrate managing desktop shortcuts using the VDI ToolKit. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So what we want to do first is go ahead and open up the management console. I have that running on a virtual desktop here, so we'll go ahead and open the management console. And once that's open, I'm going to go ahead and expand it. And then I'm going to navigate to Rules, Rule Items, and Desktop Shortcut. So as you can see, we don't have any created yet so far, so I'll go ahead and create one. And we'll do that first by giving it a name, a description, target file path, which is the location of the executable, an icon file path if we want, that's optional, arguments, once again, that's optional. We can also choose a default window style of how it should open, whether it should be maximized or minimized. And the apply if already exists means they'll overwrite if it already exists. And revertible means that once the session, they're no longer in the session, it will actually remove it. So this can be useful if you have a shortcut that you only want to display if a user is working from a particular client or location or whatnot. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to use Notepad as an example here. So we'll go ahead and give it the name, which is what will be the shortcut name. I'll leave that default and we'll leave the action as create. Just to note too, I didn't go over this earlier, that you can actually set it to delete a shortcut as well too. So if you have one that's deployed, you can just go back and change that to delete and it will remove that shortcut. Let's say an application's changed and you're no longer using an application within your organization. So we'll go ahead and click add. Once we hit add, I can search and I can see that it's created our shortcut for a rule item. So now what we need to do is we actually need to create a rule and associate this rule item with that rule for the configuration. So we'll navigate to Rules, Session Rules, and then we'll navigate to Desktop Shortcut. And as we can see, we don't have any rules, so we'll go ahead and create one. We'll give it a name and a description. And we can check global rule, which global rule means it'll apply to every session, or we can avoid that and not check global rule. And if we hit add, we'll then see that we have the option to give qualifiers. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add a qualifier for this for the user that I'm logging into a virtual desktop as. So I'll go ahead and just choose any qualifier. And please note, for more information on qualifiers and how these work and everything with the rule, please watch the tutorial on rules. So we'll go ahead and we'll choose an Active Directory user, and I'll pick the user that I am logging in with, which is this one. Okay, and now we can navigate to configuration. And we can see that we have one of the desktop shortcut items I created, which was the notepad. We'll go ahead and add that one to the configuration for this rule, and I'll go ahead and hit update. Once done, I can now do a search, and I can see the rule here and that it is been created. So now what we'll want to do is go ahead and test that rule by logging into a virtual desktop as that user. So I'll go ahead and minimize this, and let's log into a virtual desktop. Okay, as we can see here, it has actually created our shortcut here for us. So we have our shortcut, and we can confirm that as well too by going into the sys tray and then left clicking on the client, and we can navigate to rules, and we can expand session modification rules, and we'll see we have one rule here for desktop shortcuts, and I can expand that. If I highlight my mouse over the rule, it'll give me details about the rule. And I can go ahead and expand that as well too. And we can see that we have our shortcut here. Now, if I highlight my mouse over it, it'll give me details about the shortcut that's being applied by that rule. So now let's go ahead, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I will log off this virtual desktop session. And let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and navigate back to the management console. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to navigate to rules, then rule items, and desktop shortcut. And I'm going to edit the one that we created. I'm actually going to change its action to delete instead of create. So I'll go ahead and delete, and I will go ahead and do update. And this desktop shortcut rule item is still associated with that rule. So now we can test it and make sure that it actually removes the shortcut. So I'll go ahead and minimize this, and we will log back into a virtual desktop. Okay, so I'll go ahead and log in. And as we can see, the desktop shortcut's been removed, and we can once again navigate to the sys tray, go to rules, session modification rules. Oops. Go to rules, session modification rules, expand desktop shortcut rules, and we could see right here our desktop shortcut, and the action is delete, and it deleted it. Please note that this fully supports whether you're using folder redirection or some type of profile service, and there's no issue with that. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thank you.